That was 94. So you were like 22 when you moved to Texas?
Well, I actually maybe a little younger. I was probably, because I was going back and forth from the time I was like 18, 19, 20. And then when I was about 20, 21, I stayed. In Texas.
What about Texas? Well, how Texas? Why Texas?
Well, my mom was from there. Yeah, so my
Oh.
mom was from Texas. My dad was from Chicago. And so we always went back and forth until my dad took off on us, you know. So Texas was like home to me, and I had family down there, and my grandfather had just died, so he had left us a little house, and so my mom said I could stay there, and I basically stayed there for like the next 9 years. Yeah.
So what was like? What were you into? Because you got arrested in 94 for second-degree burglary.
Yeah.
In Texas, right?
Yeah. Well, that was the problem with me. I was still acting like I was from Chicago when I went to Texas. You know, you couldn't take the Chicago out of me, man. You know, and I got caught up in some dumb shit and ended up doing like 2 years on that. I think it was about 2 years, a little over maybe.
Right.
And
when you that would be 96. So that was the same year the U.S. Treasury issued that currency with the new design security features aimed at specifically at countering counterfeit.
That's when I got out. I got out right that year, man.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So apparently you somehow found your way back to, the guy that you had, the original mentor.
Yeah.
You called him Da Vinci.
Yeah.
You named him Da Vinci, right? So you returned back to the skill set that Da Vinci had given you, and this counterfeit bill that was supposed to be, this bill that the Treasury Department had released was supposed to be like, uncircumventable, like so it had like, it included it was the new $100 bill, which is one of the most frequently counterfeited denominations, and you perfected a new note so convincingly that the money passed through gambling casinos as well as banks.
Yeah, it'd go through some good things.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, we've known each other forever, so of course we've had these conversations, and I've always been like really fascinated. And one, you were very young. Two, you had no formal education.
No.
Right. And you were quoted as saying, I figured out how to create something that the government spends hundreds of millions to protect. I figured out how to do it with household items and make it look just as good. Like household items, bro?
Well, I said household items in the sense of things that you could get real cheaply.
Right.
Right. I mean, I used directory paper for the paper, right? That was in every household across the country in the yellow pages,
Right.
Like it was a household. Everyone had yellow pages back then. So for me,
so how'd you do it?
Well, it was a long process, right? Trial and error. I mean, so when I'll tell you what happened. So when I was in prison for that burglary, that second-degree burglary, I wanted to change. I didn't want to get. I had left Chicago, and that time I spent a lot of time reading, and during that reading, I realized that I really wanted to become different when I got out. I didn't want to keep. I for surely didn't want to steal from no one, right? Like I felt real guilty about that. I didn't like the way it made me feel, and so. I was reading a lot of spiritual books. I read, man, gosh, I read from Christianity to Islam to Buddhism. I started studying all the different religions. I just didn't stay on one. I wanted to read all the different ones and get an understanding to what is truth, right? So that was what I spent that time doing. And then I was studying martial arts. I had Bruce Lee's book. I was studying his philosophy. So that first prison sentence was like a little college for me, but it was mostly, just learning about religion and philosophy and things like that. And when I got out of prison, I gave my Bruce Lee book away to my cellie Me and him used to practice that shit in our cell. We were crazy, man. We had our own prison martial arts, man, you know? And he still had a lot of time left, so I left him the book. And when I got out, I wanted to get a new one. And so my girl, Natalie, she took me to the Barnes & Noble, and we get the book, and we paid for the book with $100 bill. She gave me the 100. I didn't have no money. And I seen them mark it with the pen and just throw it in the drawer. They didn't even look at the bill. They literally just threw the bill down, marked it, tossed it in the drawer, and that was it. And right away, and here it is, I'm not even 2 days out of prison, and that criminal mind kicked in immediately. And I'm like, wow. For one, I was fascinated by the new money, but then I was really excited about the way that they checked it. You know, because they didn't look at it. They didn't inspect it. They just completely trusted that marker. So I knew that if I could figure out that paper that made it mark, man, I was going to be like the mint, you know? So that's what I did. I first did try to do the right thing. I went and got a job. I was building, I think it was pole barns, it was like horse barns and stuff, because I was in Texas and they were doing that type of stuff down there. And but it wasn't steady work, and so, you know, my mind went, you know, to the money, where I was like, okay, I'm not stealing. I could do it by myself, which really, that was one of the big things that I liked about the counterfeiting, is that I didn't need no one around me, right?
No team necessary.
No team necessary in the beginning, right? Because you're alone. You're making the plates. You're making the paper. You're mixing the ink. I don't, you know, I could walk into a place, you know, and set up shop and walk out with a briefcase of hundreds.